Hello everyone, before we begin this video, I just wanted to say thank you for all the support on my Sanji as a Conqueror theory. I couldn't have imagined getting over 50 views, let alone like 10 views on my first video on this channel, so thank you guys so unbelievably much, especially to the super kind people who commented saying that they enjoyed it and wanted to see more. That absolutely meant the world to me. Real quick, I do want to say that if there is anything you guys want to see me talk about or to make a video on, please let me know in the comments. I would love to get some ideas and feedback from y'all. I plan on doing some kind of gaming every once in a while for fun as well, so please let me know what you would like to see. But now, without further ado, let's get into it. Devil fruits are some of the most mysterious objects within the One Piece story. When eaten, they grant the user insane and unbelievable powers, such as turning one's hands into scissors, turning their entire body into flames, or allowing a transformation into a bull. However, due to the unnatural and strange nature of the fruits, when consumed, the sea retaliates, preventing the user from swimming. When the power holder is submerged in water, they lose all strength and begin to sink into the deep. Despite this drawback, devil fruits are sought after by many individuals wishing to control the powerful abilities they grant. While these fruits are mysterious and grant crazy abilities, they aren't impossible to grasp. Dr. Vegapunk gave a theory stating that the devil fruits are created by the wishes and beliefs of past individuals, saying that the power users live in a world dreamt up by someone else, meaning that humans are capable of dreaming, imagining, and understanding the powers they grant. We also learn from Crocodile that these powers aren't truly incomprehensible, as users are able to develop their fruit similar to a muscle in the body and become more proficient with the usage of their ability. Unfortunately, we aren't given a ton of time or chances to see too many devil fruit users actually progress their abilities. However, amongst the Straw Hats, we are given great examples of this, such as Luffy unlocking his gear transformations, Chopper post-time skip being able to use all of his transformations without a rumble ball, and even developing new ones, Brook learning to separate his soul from his body, and Robin being able to combine the hands and legs she creates into much larger limbs. However, as revealed by Doflamingo, devil fruits have another stage to them called Awakening. Stated by Kaido, if the user's mind and body are able to catch up with the ability they are granted, then they will undergo an awakening, greatly increasing the strength of their power, but also granting them augmented, upgraded, or entirely new abilities. For example, as stated previously, Doflamingo is the first person we see use an awakened fruit, except the jailer beasts, but we'll talk about those guys later. Usually, he is only able to use strings he releases from his body, but his awakening allows him to turn his surroundings, such as buildings or even just the ground, into strings which he can completely control to his will. Now, before we go too much further, let's look at the types of devil fruits that we have seen in the story and the awakenings that we've seen from them. Starting off quick, Logia type devil fruits are the kind that turn one's entire body into an element or substance, as well as allowing the user to create that substance seemingly endlessly, such as light, ice, or magma. These fruits make the user unable to be harmed by conventional means and require the use of Haki or Sea Prism Stone to be able to harm them. Unfortunately, we haven't seen a true awakened Logia in the story. However, it is heavily theorized that Akainu and Aokiji awakened their devil fruits during their duel on Punk Hazard, thus meaning that a Logia awakening can permanently alter the terrain, but this is not a confirmed fact. Paramecia devil fruits are the most bizarre type of fruit, based on the wide range and type of powers granted by them. From allowing the user to create bombs out of their boogers, able to create giant poison dragons, or absorb substances into scrolls, all the way to resurrecting you when you die, creating dumplings from your cheek that can tame animals, or being very, very slippery. Yeah, that one's kind of weird. From the awakenings that we've seen of these types of fruits, those are Doflamingo, Katakuri, Trafalgar Law, and Eustace Kid. The first two of them mentioned are able to turn their surroundings into the object they can both control from their own body. Strings for Doflamingo, and Mochi for Katakuri. As for the others, their powers are more unique than that. Kid's basic ability allows him to manipulate metal, similar to Magneto from Marvel Comics. But his awakening allows him to magnify other people, as seen with Pig Mom. He made her magnetic and all the metal in Onigashima Castle was poured towards her. Law's ability is a little bit more complicated than that. He is granted 2 new abilities thanks to his awakening. Re-Room allows him to create a room that is not centered on his body, allowing him to cut anything within that room, even though it's so far away from him, as seen with Blackbeard on Stronger. Additionally, he is granted K-Room, an ability that allows him to apply a room to just his blade, enabling him to freely control the size of it, as well as puncture just about anything. And finally, the Zoan type, by far the most prevalent type of awakening we've seen and know the most about. Zoan devil fruits allow the user to transform into an animal, such as a bull, as stated previously, a wolf, or even a tanuki. These separate themselves from the other 2 categories of devil fruits by having to find variations or versions in ancient Zoans, granting the forms of dinosaurs or ancient creatures like a mammoth, or mythical Zoans, allowing the transformation into legendary figures and beasts such as Buddha or a phoenix. When these fruits awaken, as stated by Shaka, they are typically unsuccessful, causing the fruit to take over the person, turning them into a simple-minded beast-like figure, robbing them of their personality. This is seen with the previously mentioned jailer beasts in Impel Down. However, in rare cases, as displayed by Rob Lucci and Luffy, the user will retain their personality and be granted a new awakened form as a transformation in their arsenal. Awakened transformations grant the user increased power, speed, and durability to that of the previous form. Luffy, however, is an awakened mythical Zoan, thus has an additional ability on top of that, in which he turns his surroundings and other people he touches into rubber, similar to a Paramecia awakening. Additionally, the awakened form of every successful awakened Zoan we've seen has had a cloud-like sash called a Hagoromo, typically black, while Luffy is the only one who has a white one. Now that we've gone over the types of awakenings associated with each fruit, I want to get into the actual topic of today's video. Can the genius jester, Buggy the Clown, awaken his devil fruit? Well, with the limited information that we have about awakenings, I definitely think it seems possible. I mentioned Kaido's statement about awakenings, but this is literally all the information we actually have on panel about them, and the only one we've actually seen happen is Luffy's, in which case he had to pass away before obtaining the power. However, while the actual awakenings we don't know too much about, if we compare Buggy to other people who have awakened, then we can see some pretty interesting things. First of all, Buggy shares one important factor with all of the other awakenings that we have seen: time. While Lucci and Kid are not included in this, as it is not stated when they ate their fruits, the rest of the awakened users in the show ate their fruits when they were kids. Luffy ate the Gomu Gomu no Mi when he was 7 years old and awakened it when he was 19. Doflamingo ate the Ito Ito no Mi when he was 10, and is awakened by the time that we see him in Dressrosa at 41. In his fever card, it is stated that Katakuri ate his fruit when he was 5, and is now awakened by the time that we see him in Whole Cake Island at 48. Law was force-fed his fruit when he was 13, and is awakened by the time he is 26, awakening somewhere in between the time of Dressrosa and Wano. Now, Buggy ate his fruit when he was 12 years old aboard Gold D. Rogers' ship and is now 39. All of these characters had over 10 years to develop and learn their fruit, with Luffy being the shortest at only 12, meaning Buggy has had plenty of time to adapt his mind and his body to his power. Now, before we go really deep into talking about Buggy, I do want to talk about Luffy for just one more second very briefly. In just about every fight that we've seen Luffy in since Kaido, he has almost immediately used Gear 5. I believe the reason for this is that Luffy is trying to grow more proficient with the form, as he has a heavy stamina issue when using his awakening. I relate this back to Dragon Ball Z, when Goku and Gohan left the hyperbolic time chamber, or the Room of Spirited Time, whichever one you want to call it. They both chose to remain in a Super Saiyan state, training their body to grow accustomed to the form and be able to use it more naturally. The reason I mention all of this is because Buggy has also been doing that exact same thing. We see him now as the face of the Cross Guild, using his power to extend his arms and legs underneath a large tarp, giving him a more imposing and intimidating stature. Actually, since before the time skip, we haven't seen him in his regular sized body at all, only in this much larger form, meaning he's probably been doing this the entire time. However, it's not only in post-time skip that we see him do this kind of thing. After he's blasted away by Luffy in Orangetown, Buggy is forced to go on without his torso or legs, turning him into only hands, feet, and a head. During this form, he sails a ship, hunts a bird, and makes a new friend in Chessman Gaimon. Island of Rare Animals theory win. While hilarious, this does show that Buggy is able to use his fruit in very unconventional ways, and that he's one of the only characters we see utilizing their fruit like this in their day-to-day lives. You know, I've just realized we've made it this far into the video and haven't even talked about what Buggy's fruit actually does. Well, now is the perfect time to, since we're going to be talking about his feats. No, not like strength or speed feats, he obviously doesn't have any of those. I'm talking about his feats. Buggy's Bara no Mi has many different applications that we will get into, but my personal favorite is his wacky way of flight. Buggy's ability allows him to separate any part of his body at will, one of which being his feet. He can then float at a limited range away from his feet, allowing him to kind of fly or levitate. If he gets too far from his feet, then he will be unable to keep flying. He also uses this ability to use his limbs as projectile weapons, such as Chop Chop Cannon, shooting his fist at people while holding knives, or just using all his limbs in a tornado-like attack with Chop Chop Festival. Or, you know, he can drive a car. Cool. This ability also grants him complete immunity from slashing attacks, first shown in his skirmish with Zoro. And I'm talking like fully, completely immune. In Marineford, he was chopped into shreds by Mihawk, who should have the Haki, keyword should, to bypass Buggy's Devil Fruit, and he returned to normal perfectly fine. He is still vulnerable to blunt attacks, like punches, but can still avoid them by separating his body in time. Additionally, while this is a little bit of speculation, Buggy didn't show the flying ability any time before Impel Down, so it is possible he realized he could do this later on, showing that, honestly, he's kinda dumb. But that he is still learning new things with his fruit and improving it. Finally, I want to talk about the one thing that sets Buggy apart from all the other Awaken users in the show, and that is Haki. Now, I don't want to say that Haki is required for an awakening, because in my opinion, that kind of goes against the nature of Devil Fruits. Like, Haki is used to counter fruits. It doesn't make sense to me that you would need it in order to awaken it. However, what I do think is necessary is some level of will or ambition in order for you to be able to tap into the final form of the fruit, as it is stated by the Gorosei that at least the Zoan types have a will of their own. And in my opinion, Buggy has shown that he has at least that. During Egghead, we get a cutaway to Buggy, chained up with Crocodile and Mihawk in front of him. The two discuss their goals and what they will need to pull it off, mainly, to which Buggy interjects, money and power, right? He calls their goals small and questions if they are really even pirates. Buggy, seeing that Shanks has started to make a move towards the One Piece, questions while all this time he's decided to do it. Unwilling to forgive Shanks for his past choices, Buggy announces that by whether luck or by accident, he's on the same level as him, as a Yonko, and that he wants to be the king of the pirates. He shouts at his business partners, saying that they can have all the money and power in the world if they go and get the greatest treasure in the world, the One Piece. Mihawk and Crocodile beat him up and question if he wishes to fight the other emperors, to which Buggy says that they can just outsmart them. He then grabs a Denden Mushi and shouts to his entire crew with such inspiring words that it makes them all start to cry. While getting stomped on by Crocodile, he announces that they should all go after the One Piece together, as they all dreamed of it when they were children. I think this moment, at the very least, shows that Buggy has some ambition left in him, and is willing to at least get beat up for his dream. Now, if you've been paying attention, there has been one person, not in the manga because I'm not trying to spoil anybody, that has awakened their ability that I have not mentioned at all. And that is none other than Kaku and his Ushi Ushi no Mi model giraffe. The reason I haven't talked about him yet is because he's probably the biggest reason why I think Buggy can awaken. We watched on panel Kaku eat his devil fruit, then go on to fight Sora with it hours later. And by the time we see him in Egghead, he has less than 2 years experience with his devil fruit. And honestly, the most creative thing that we've seen him do with it, other than turning into a Minecraft block, is using his full Zoan form as a slide for kids in a cover story. And this dude has an awakened Zoan fruit after just 2 years, only showing Haki like one time, and he then sits out the rest of the arc with handcuffs in a bubble at the top part of Egghead, never coming down except at the end of the arc with Lucci. It is insane to me that he was able to do that. I guess it could be explained by his love of giraffes already, but regardless, that's just crazy to think that within that much time, he was able to awaken. All this to say, I think Buggy has more than met the qualifications to awaken his devil fruit, but will he actually be able to do it within the story? Well, I'll be honest, I'm not too sure. I feel it's definitely in his character to be capable of it, and narratively, if he's going to be a player within the final war or some large-scale fight down the road, then he needs some kind of buff, and I think an awakening would be absolutely perfect for him. It would expand on his already flashy and eccentric personality. However, considering he told Mihawk and Croc that they could just outsmart the other Yonkos, I don't see him pursuing an actual fight, so maybe he just doesn't need it. But as we come to a close, I would like to take a little bit of time to theorize what Buggy's awakening power could actually be. As seen with the other Paramecia abilities similar to Buggy's in Doflamingos and Katakuris, I think that it could be that he's able to break apart inanimate objects at will. This would make him similar to that of a Jedi from Star Wars, using the Force, throwing around objects as weapons. And I just think that would be so sick to see Buggy just building like 2 halves of a building and then throwing them at somebody. Like, imagine that. But what if we took it a step further? Kids and Luffy's awakening abilities allow them to also affect other people. So what if Buggy could separate other people into different parts, similar to Law's ability, and move them around, throwing them to different areas, leaving them unable to connect themselves together? That would make him a much scarier threat, being able to defeat anyone without some type of armament Haki, at least with basic ease. Additionally, this would potentially end up being a great ability to use against the Gorosei and Holy Knights, seeing as they can regenerate. It would prevent them from doing so, as their body is still technically there, just not attached to them at the moment, making Buggy an immense threat to the world government. As we close, if you made it this far, thank you so much. This was definitely more of like an educational and fun video, but I just love talking about this series, and Buggy is such a fun character to talk about too, because it still baffles me that he is still in the story. Oda is just so good at making a character stick around and not having him feel old or boring. And the fact that he has done that with Buggy and turn him into a Yonko, it makes me think that he has to get something for the future, and an awakening seems so fitting for him now, in my opinion. But, as always, my name is Hunt, actually it's my middle name, and thank you for watching.